Good evening there and welcome to the news in English brought to you live from Zain News. I'm your host Lamia Achouche. To begin with today's top stories. Those were today's headlines. Welcome back. The first day of Eid al-Fitr will be celebrated this Sunday, June 25th in Algeria, as announced today by the National Commission for the Observation of the Lunar Crescent. Headlines in its plan to achieve the construction of 1,600,000 housing units, the Housing Ministry has announced that the government will soon launch a new rental housing formula in partnership between the public and private sectors. This new formula, which is included in the new government's action plan, was approved by the two chambers of parliament and will soon see the light. Here's Osama Snoussi with more. Still covering the decisions announced by Premier Abdelmajid Tebboune on Friday from Parliament, the President of the Republic, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, instructed his government to hold an exceptional session of the baccalaureate exams for the latecomers who were suspended. The second chance comes to appease the growing anger by pupils' parents, especially after news about a candidate who died of shock after his suspension in El Wad province. Here's Karim Fazakri with more on the topic. Prime Minister Abdelmajid Tebboune said Friday that the presence of displaced nationals from the depth of Africa here in Algeria will be regulated, stressing that Algeria allows no harm to its reputation in reference to those who seek to undermine Algeria's image or label it as racist. And speaking of the tourism sector, it is universally acknowledged that tourism generates substantial economic benefits to the countries that invest in this vital sector. For instance, Algeria, whose economy heavily depends on oil revenues, previously undertook firm strategies to revive it and face the economic crisis. Now, following this scandal of the tourism minister's dismissal, Zain News cameras visited the head office of the tourism ministry in the capital to inquire more about these strategies, only to find chaos and mayhem inside. Mustafa Azzoug will take us there in the following report. President Abdelaziz Bouteflika has presided over a cabinet meeting which began its work by studying the government's plan of action submitted by the Prime Minister in accordance with Article 93 of the Algerian Constitution. This document is based on the President's program and is based on the new growth pattern approved by the Council of Ministers back in June 2016. Right to other news, the Minister of Housing, Urban Planning and the City, Abdelwahid Tamar, announced from the central province of Msila that his ministry plans to introduce a new housing formula in internal provinces. This new formula will include the construction of villa houses instead of apartment buildings, and the project will be implemented in partnership between the public and private sectors alike and will be subsidized by the public treasury. Here's Osama Snoussi with more. A summit of EU member states to discuss Brexit is to be held on April 29th, 1 month after the UK triggers Article 50, officially kickstarting Brexit. Moving on to our international file, faced with multiple crises and wary of US President Donald Trump's approach towards the Middle East, leaders of the divided Arab world attempted to forge common positions on the region's most pressing concerns when they met for their annual summit. In particular, the Arab leaders reiterated support for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, sending a strong message to the White House, but also to the Arab peoples, who seem to be the only believers in the Palestinian cause. We'll have more details on this topic with our own Karim Fazakri. Come back. The beginning with political news. In response to his critics, FLN party leader Mr. Jamal Ould Abbas stated that he knew from the very beginning that some unknown parties would launch a mighty war against him and his party, as he put it. Mr. Ould Abbas also said that 70% of the FLN electoral lists comprised of new candidates. Let's take a listen. Now, moving on to the U.S. Now, ex-FBI chief James Comey told Congress that the Trump administration's comments about him and the FBI were, quote, lies, plain and simple. Mr. Comey told the Senate committee they were wrong to denigrate the agency and its leadership. He was also confused by the shifting explanations, as he put it, for his sacking, which came as he led a probe into any links between the Trump campaign and Moscow. President Donald Trump later said he never sought to impede the inquiry. Here's a recap about the explosive Capitol Hill hearing with Karim Fazakri. Those were today's top stories, but first, let's go to the housing sector. After the announcement of the Minister of Housing, Urban Planning and the City, Mr. Youssef Shorfa, that his ministry plans to launch a new rental housing formula instead of that of sale, Great controversy was raised over the effectiveness of this action in containing the housing crisis in Algeria and putting an end to the speculation taking place in the real estate sector. First reactions praised the initiative, but only if the government deals with this sensitive file carefully to put an end to the phenomenon of monopoly that has long dominated the sector. Here's Oussama Soussi. Let's move now to our international news. Palestinian worshippers have clashed with Israeli security forces outside the gate to the Old City in Jerusalem as tensions continue over the new security measures implemented at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. National news now: 8 dangerous terrorists have been neutralized Monday in a research operation conducted by a detachment of the People's National Army in the region of Gouraya Tipaza, which is a coastal city 50 kilometers west of the capital, Algiers. And in a new development, the Ministry of Defense revealed the identity of the 8 terrorists on Tuesday. Here are more details in this report by Karim Fez Zakri. In other news, Algeria officially resumed on Tuesday the deportation operation of illegal Nigerian migrants in coordination with Niamey. And for a smooth running operation, the government has involved the Algerian Red Crescent in order to ensure a dignified treatment to the deportees in line with Algeria's international commitments. Still with economy, according to the monthly report issued by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, Algeria crude oil, known as Saharan Blend, dropped more than $2 from its average price recorded last month. Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries severed relations with Qatar, accusing the small nation of supporting extremist groups, allegations that Qatar has said are baseless and unjustified. This seeming blockade prompted Qatari officials to seek other alternatives to supply their markets with goods, and one of those was Algeria, as the small nation formally requested Algeria to export locally sourced vegetables to supply its market amid fears of food shortages. Here's Mustafa Azouk. Let's move a little bit away from politics and on to entertainment news. Algerian actress who plays the namesake character in the Tom Cruise remake of the Universal classic The Mummy, Sofia Boutella, is this season's breakout action star. The Algerian French dancer, actress, and model has risen from back-end dancer to action star and is making headlines in Hollywood. Let's now follow this report about her recent rise to fame with our own Hind Sminaras. Right from Hollywood, let's now finally go to sports news, as Spanish prosecutors have accused Real Madrid footballer Cristiano Ronaldo of defrauding the authorities of millions of euros in tax. Thank you for joining me live on Zain News. This is Lamia Achouche signing off. Goodbye, everyone. That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining me live on Zain News. This is Lamia Achouche signing off. Goodbye, everyone.